Hello and welcome to Antimatter Garage. I had originally intended to just follow the instructions, post up the video, make it a long one, maybe an hour or something like that, and be done with it. But when I went to sit down and edit the video, I found that I had over 8.5 hours of video shots. So I'm not going to be able to get that down to 1 hour. So I'm going to break this into parts, and I'm going to do my best to break it into parts that you can easily follow if you're trying to do the install. But I have a few things to mention before we do that. One is Monkey Wrench Racing says that this kit can be installed in the MR2 Spyder with the engine in the car. That is true. I am proof of that. But I'm not sure I recommend doing it that way. It's kind of a toss-up when I think about how hard it was for me to remove my engine. I mean, it depends on your setup. Maybe you're have a little bit different setup than I do. But it was pretty much a chore. This was also a chore. But I do recommend taking the engine out of the car to do it because, at a minimum, you'll get much better access to the nuts and bolts and putting everything on. It just makes the install so much easier. Plus, I ran cables and hoses and things like that along the firewall of the car, and it would have been a lot easier if the engine wasn't in it. 2, if you haven't bought the kit yet, if you're thinking about buying the kit, I highly recommend that you first talk to your tuner. I don't have a tuner like, ooh, talk to my lawyer, like everybody has a lawyer. But I call around. And I was kind of happy to find that there were 6 or 7 tuners within, say, an hour drive of where I live. But out of those 7, only 2 were familiar with the ECU Master Black, which was the option that I chose for my kit. So you have to choose what you're going to do. Maybe you choose just the piggyback that Monkey Wrench offers, or maybe you're going to go with a Haltech or something completely different. It's a good idea to make sure that there's a tuner available to you that's familiar with that software. Most tuners, at least these ones I talked to, really kind of only wanted to deal with the software they were familiar with. In addition to that, they can make some pretty good suggestions. So my tuner actually, well, I should say, out of the 2 that I found, let me back up. I was interested in doing water injection, something I'll explain in a later video, why I was choosing that. And I polled all of the tuners that I called about this. And out of the 2 that used the ECU Master Black, neither one of them had ever done water injection, and they didn't really seem interested. And in fact, that became a problem later on, which we'll discuss. So, if you're going to do something like that, then you're going to want to know if the tuner you choose is going to go whatever direction you want to go. For instance, the tuner that I actually chose had a recommendation that he would have just used E85 to combat knock. And I think at least that was a good suggestion, right? I didn't want to do that because this is still kind of a daily driver, and I can get 93 octane around town all day long. But E85 is a lot more difficult in my area. There are some stations I've seen it, but I didn't want my wife to be going to the grocery store or whatever, and then needs gas and has to drive around to one of the stations I put on a list for her to go to, and then I just didn't want to go there. I just wanted to use the regular gas. So those are kind of the concerns that you might want to flesh out before you even purchase the kit. It may even affect what kind of computer you're going to use to control everything. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I forgot. So in the last video, I made myself a custom exhaust system, and so I kind of need to take the steps out of order at the very beginning because I want to make sure that when the alternator moves to the exhaust side of the engine, it doesn't interfere with my new exhaust system, because that'll bring everything pretty much to a halt. Because that's something it has to do. The kit comes with a bracket to move the alternator to the other side, so that's really good because obviously the supercharger occupies the space where the alternator used to be. So it's really important to make sure that you're not going to get any interference there. Monkey Wrench Racing, I think, checked to make sure that their header fits, the PPE header fits. I think the stock one fits, but mine's custom. So anyway, after that's like in step 5 or something like that. So after I do step 5 and verify that's okay, I return and go in order. It shouldn't affect you if you really want to go in exact order and don't want to follow me. Then you can just skip the next video and come back here when you get to that step. But again, I don't think it's any big deal really. Alrighty, step one as always is to put on some music. I guess technically it's more like a step 0, I think. Should always be there. Anyway, I have removed the entire package tray and partition board, and to do all that I had to take all this plastic and stuff. So there's a lot of steps. I'm not going to go through all that because it's been in other videos. I put it in my video when I did the soft top. There may be other people that have them, so it's not part of the Supercharger install, really, but you can see over there is the ECU. And I think behind this I can place some of the stuff that goes in there, like the new ECU. I probably will remove that one and put the other one in its place, but there are other things, like I think I might want some lines coming in here, a boost gauge, some the water, no, the water didn't have to, just the boost gauge, some electronics and stuff like that. I may have to drill a hole here and put a grommet or something. So I just wanted this out of the way. I don't think you need to do this really for this step. Yeah. I'm going to start by disconnecting the battery. I think that's a good place to start. And I will probably remove the cross brace in the back. Alright, so to get to the battery connections, the alternator connections, they're way back in there. Let me see if I can get this to stick. They're way back in there, and I can barely get my hand in there. I'll show you. Oh, that's nice. It's way back there. Somebody can see my hand is, my arm is pretty deep. So, but I tried it from underneath, and it didn't really look like that was going to work either, because there wasn't any place to get my hands in. So I'll just have to try and work with it here. I've never replaced the alternator on this car, and now I'm glad I haven't. To remove the alternator, the monkey wrench instructions are already a little off. It doesn't mention here anywhere that you need to take off the motor mount. Let me show you. To get the alternator out, it looks like it needs to come out through here, and that motor mount's in the way. So I saw a video where the guy did it, and it looked like that was the best way to go. In addition, their first step is to disconnect the alternator, but it looks like it may be easier if you remove the alternator first, and then it's easier to get to the connections to disconnect. I think he is right, and monkey wrench is wrong here, so I'm going to proceed that way. But to remove that motor mount means that there won't really be support for the motor here, so I'm going to put something underneath to support the motor. Alright, so I've removed the big motor mount here, and it looks like one of the bolts for the alternator, let me get my hand out of the way, one of the bolts for the alternator is right there, and it's in this bracket, so I'm removing this bracket as well just to get it out of the way. It's going to be easier, except it kind of wasn't, because that pulley there for the water pump gets barely in the way of the bottom bolt for this, like, you know, 1/4 of an inch, maybe, you know, 3-4 millimeters. It's always that way. Kind of curse the designer they couldn't move that bolt up just the tiniest little bit, you know, or make the pulley just a little bit smaller, or whatever, you know, put a spoke in there, I don't know, whatever. But so I had to pull the pulley off of the water pump to get to that bolt that's gone. I'm pointing at it now with my finger. The last bolt that's holding this thing in is this guy here, and this whole bracket here will come out. Normally I put the bolts back in. Let me move here. Normally I put the bolts back in, but this guy here, let me see, can you see that on the screen? Yeah. This bolt here and the bolt next to it, they stick out a lot, and I'm afraid I'll get in the way of this when I'm taking out. So I bagged them and tagged them. I've already removed this bolt here from the alternator. I believe the only other one left is the one down there. I think there are only 2 that hold it in. So I'm going to pull that and find out. Well, indeed, that was the last bolt, and the alternator is now loose. You can see if I move it. You can see it moving around there, right? But it doesn't want to come out. And I think it may be held by the wiring, which is odd since the wiring is what I'm trying to get at.
this connector down here, let me see, can you see that? Yeah, that connector that the screwdriver is pointing at is, I'm afraid if I roughhouse this alternator too much, it's going to break that connector. I think it goes to, yeah, it goes to the AC down there. So I'm going to, I don't know, maybe go in and get a cup of coffee, rethink my life choices. I'm just going to mess with this and see if I can I just pull it around a little bit, feel around back there, see if we can get the wires off. I don't know, I'll let you know what I find out. Okay, as you can see, I finally was able, just like I said, it just kept wiggling until it sort of rotated out this way. But what's really holding on is this connector right here. Let me get down in there. This connector right here. It's just a clip that holds this wire nicely. And on top, there's a little tab you got to pull it. You got to pull it, or push it, or squeeze it in, basically, and then that'll lift off. But I can't seem to quite squeeze it hard enough. I don't. It's just catching a little bit, and it won't pull off. All right, I figured out what I was doing wrong. This tab here, I was squeezing inward in that direction. You need to pull it outward in that direction, and then it just comes right off. That was just killing me. It's hard to get one hand on there and pull that clip out and apply pressure upward, but you can see it just hooks onto there, and that is attached very short with a very short amount of wire to the air conditioning compressor, which I have. I live in Florida, so I need that. So it's putting a lot of pressure on it if you try and, you know, mess with it too much. So anyway, don't make the mistake I did. Just make sure. Alright, so here's the alternator. You can see the arms are pretty long. It's kind of big. I'm a little concerned about it fitting in there, but what I wanted to show you was, here's that support for the wires that it goes on, and it clicks on there, right? You can see that if you absolutely can't get it off, you could try and get it off here with this nut, but that's even harder to get to, I think. So then the other one, this connector you squeeze in and pull out like any other. I found a lot of times if you push in a little bit and then squeeze the tab, it'll come off easier than if you just try and squeeze. And a lot of times, of course, they're brittle and they'll break, so not much you can do about that. Here, this plastic thing gave me a lot of trouble. You saw how it just came off really easy. There's what it looks like, the little tab. So you just have to grab it on the sides. It grabs this black ring here, right? And it just snaps on. But like with my fingers, I was able, if you can get your hand in that position, wow, it just falls off now. I was prying with a screwdriver, wouldn't come off at all. Maybe it was under there. Anyway, then that reveals this nut that you got to take off. So that just keeps it from shorting on anything, this little plastic cover. So it's kind of important you keep it. I'm just going to snap it back on there. That's about it. So it's just those two connections, and then those two electrical connections, and the support here. One long bolt there, and then the 12mm I took off earlier. And that's going to go back in on the right side, and let me show you those instructions. So here it says that the alternator will be located at the rear of the engine in place of the idler pulley. So I'm guessing that the idler pulley is going to have to come out, which isn't going to be fun. I'm going to follow these and try and follow these instructions and see if it fits in there with the exhaust. There's my exhaust. Now they said it might be easier to take the exhaust out to do this, but the gasket that seals my exhaust to the head is very thick because I had some warpage and it was leaking. I do have a spare. So I could take it off, but I'd rather not. They're $60, and if I have to do it one more time, then I'm going to have to wait for it to arrive. So I'm going to try and wiggle it around in there. If it doesn't work, I'll take the exhaust off. Okay, this is sort of everything that was in the bag that looked like it could be alternator. At least it's marked alt. This is marked alt. This, I'm assuming, is also not marked at all, but I mean, it looks like power wires, right? So I'm guessing. Supercharger doesn't have any electronics on it, just a belt. And these weren't marked either, but I'm pretty sure this is the relocation kit. I don't know if both these brackets are for that or if one of them's for the supercharger. There is a sort of another bracket for, it goes on the snout of the supercharger, I think, or up front to hold it in place. And I don't know if this also does or what, but I'm pretty sure this one at least is the relocation, so I'm going to grab this and find out where it goes. Alright, it's my opinion that the instructions that Monkey Wrench has given us are not the most explicit. Let me point it out for you. So here it says, the engine block has 2 dowel pins installed that take up any slack in the brackets. These need to be fully extended first. Let me show you what they're talking about there. Alright, let me show you what I think they're talking about here. On a regular 2ZZ powered car, say the Celica, or even the Corolla, right where the tip of my screwdriver would normally sit a power steering pump. But the Spyder doesn't use power steering pump, it uses an mechanical hydraulic pump that's located up front. So in this location they've installed this idler. There's the idler pulley right there, and it just has a bolt that goes through this ear and this ear. And if you just installed the bolt there and then tightened it, this ear and this ear would want to come closer to each other and snap off because they're not strong enough to handle it. So they've put this little sort of shim in between to make sure that that doesn't happen. It takes up the slack. And I have made sure that when I put my idler pulley in, that I had this lined up with my belt so it didn't shred. And to do that, I had to adjust right in here where I'm pointing now. There's a pressed-in sort of bushing. I believe that's the dowel they're talking about. And I had to make sure it was extended inward the right amount to take up the slack so that this pulley would be inward as well, enough to line up. I hope that makes sense. What I'm not getting is, I think that they're talking about, so this piece right here, you can see where there's a little junction between this piece and this piece. I believe that's the dowel they're talking about. They said there are 2 of them. I don't know where the other one is, except perhaps right here. And in fact, I think I can see it sticking out right there. Now, they said that those 2 dowels have to be fully extended before you do this job. To me, extended would mean pushed outward. But let me show you why I am confused, and I think they could have been more explicit, because they may mean extended inward. Let me show you the piece. Here is the bracket. I don't know if it goes this way or this way. It goes this way. And if I put it in there, you can see there's a little gap. If I put a bolt through there and tighten it down, with that little gap, one of these 2 ears is going to break. That gap needs to be taken up. And I believe they mean, actually this one goes up top, but it's the same gap. So it seems to me what they mean by fully extended is actually want the dowel to be pushed more inward to take up that extra space so that it can't move around. And in fact, that's how you adjust the pulley on the alternator to line up with the belt. But it's not really clear to me. I don't know that bushing's going to do that. So I'm trying to remember what it looks like. In that one down there, you can kind of see it's flush on this side and it sticks out on the other side. This is, I wish, like I said, I wish the instructions were more explicit. Let me point again. This is the bushing. I believe you can see that, yeah. And you see it's flush on this side, whereas mine sticks in a little bit because I don't use this at all, so it didn't matter, but this one needed to take up that space. So, I don't know. Fully extended, to me, wouldn't work, I don't think, because I think that bushing can come quite a bit more in than the gap that is there for the new bracket. I'm going to just remove this idler pulley and see if I can figure it out. Alright, I believe I understand what their instructions are trying to tell me now. I'm hoping you can see that. Let me put this there. Yep. Alright, so here, this is the bushing, as I mentioned before. And you can see it's pretty much flat here. That means it's pushed that way as far as it'll go. This one, however, is not, because I pushed that in when I did my adjustment on this. I think what they're saying is they have to be fully extended, which means they need to go that way. It's said toward the passenger side, right? So theoretically, you take the bolt out and remove this pulley. This piece will come out. This piece will be extended out a little bit, and it needs to be pushed in. And they're saying to come in from, let me see if I can actually do it. Yeah. They're saying come in like this and place your screwdriver or punch or whatever you're using right on that bushing, and they're calling it a dowel. They did use quotation marks, so I think they didn't know really what to call it, but to me a dowel is a solid cylinder and a bushing is more like a tube. So you have to put your screwdriver, your punch, or whatever you're going to use on the bushing, but not on the ear, and pound it in. And theoretically, this bushing will then go that way, and you do it until it's flush like it is here. I don't like the idea of that because I'm afraid these bushings are fairly tight. When I was tightening the bolt down, I could hear them sort of cracking as they went because they're super, super tight in there. So I don't like the idea because I'm still afraid I might damage this ear, and why chance it, right? Because damaging one of those ears is going to be more or less catastrophic. So what I think I'm going to do is make myself like a little tool where I can screw it in and tighten it that way and push it back out. So I think that's the method I'm going to use. Now to line up, to line up the pulley on the alternator with the rest of the pulleys, I think what they're saying is their parts are designed in such a way that when they go in against the left side, and you thread your bolt through and you tighten it, that this bushing will then come in to meet it. And so theoretically, the alternator will be in the right spot when everything, the top bracket and the bottom bracket are pushed as far left as they can go from this point of view. I believe that's what they're saying. Either way, once it's in, I think it's really important to check the belt alignment down in here with the other pulleys, just to make sure you're not going to shred anything. And that's not an easy thing to do, and I'll show you some drawings here to explain that. Alright, so I say either way, my next step is to remove this idler pulley here. And there is a bolt that goes all the way through it from here through the front of the pulley there. And let's hope that the person who did your install thought to put this bolt in from left to right in this view, because then it will slide out nicely. But if they put it in the other way, it's going to hit on the car right here, and the only way that's going to come out, I think, is if you cut the bolt and then go get a new one. I'm the one who did this, and I know I put it in from the left for that very reason. So next step for me is to just remove this idler pulley by putting a wrench of some kind on the nut on the front of the pulley there, and then loosening here, and then it should just come right out. And there's the pulley out. The spacer is still in there. I'll show you. Right here. And I cannot stress this enough. Do not tighten. I know I've said it before, but do not tighten a bolt through both of these ears without something taking up all of that space. If you leave that much gap and you tighten it, you will break those ears. Don't think, oh, they're really strong, it'll be fine because it's part of the block. Blocks aren't known for their flexibility. The guy who did this installed the 2ZZ install on his car broke those. Broke one of those at least. I tried to put a link to his site, or to his channel. It's called Stark Reality, and he did break those. So it is possible. Don't do it. Make sure you got something in there. And that's what I'm going to do now. Is I will remove this piece, and then do what they said and push that in, and then continue on. So there's the spacer. I had to sort of pound it out sideways. It was in there pretty tight, and I'll now show you what it looks like, the bushing that they were talking about. So there it is. You can see mine's pushed in a little bit, and they're saying it needs to be pushed that way so that it's flush, kind of like that other one is. So online they were saying that this piece was failing and that you should box it in because it's got these two lines, and one from I guess a different company a while back, it was a one solid piece. I'm thinking about I might do that. Unfortunately this is nicely powder coated, but I might do that, but for now I just need to see if it's going to fit. And then I'll maybe break the welder out later. And if you look here, it's kind of hard to see. If you can't see it on this, I'll show you the picture online that I found online. It's sharper. It goes this way. And I believe that I don't need to pound mine all the way out, because I think the reason you do that is that this distance, if it's not out far enough, this piece won't fit in. As it turns out, mine fits perfectly. And I believe in the end what you're going to do is tighten the bolt down and push that bushing out until it meets here anyway. So I think if I pounded mine out and therefore maybe damage the ear, unless I come up with a way to, like I said, squeeze it in with some tool, I might just wind up tightening it and pushing it back down to this same spot again anyway. So I have a feeling I might be able just to leave mine the way it is. But what I do want to do is go and look online. Right here, it looks a little bit silverish, and there might be like a little washer they have in there or something. So I'm going to go look. The other thing I don't really understand is it looks like it came with some bolts. It says MR2 Alt. I'm thinking that's Alternator, right? It came with bolts, but the bolts that came on the car I think should work. Now we'll find out in a minute, I guess. Okay, so I think I've gotten to the bottom of this. I find it annoying that they didn't include another picture. This little silver part here, right on the very end of my fingernail, looks a little like a washer. This is all black. It's not shiny on the end, so but they don't mention one at all. There's not one included, so I'm going to assume this goes in that way. This one you can't even see, so you have to basically offer up the alternator and see if it goes this way or if it goes that way to bolt up. I think these, I think they've given you repeats. In other words, two of these go into the engine block here and here, and the other two are, I think, basically the same as what you pulled off your car where it was mounted before. One goes on the top and one goes on the bottom. So you don't need to reuse the ones that came on your car. But I will compare the two and make sure they're the same. It's possible, you know, they're different lengths or something. One of the problems I had was trying to figure out which way the bottom bracket went, and the visibility is just horrible in there, but I think I've got it, and I will show you later. I'm going to take this back out again. It's a final fit, although it was a real pain to struggle with this. Now they gave me a, looks like they gave me a bolt with a nut, but mine, this is threaded on my end, so there's no way I can really use that. I'm reusing the original one that goes in and screws in here. That means you have to put it in from this side, and there's not a lot of room there. So when it's, if you leave the bottom loose, then you can rock this thing around, and that allows you to have enough room to put the bolt part of the way in until you can line it up. It's really good to have three hands here, because this piece needs to go up and down, and this the alternator needs to move in and out, but you also need to be able to push on the screw, so it's very difficult to get all your hands to kind of do all those three of those things. I eventually got it, but it's quite the dance. It doesn't matter, because at this point I've discovered what I needed to discover, which is that the alternator fits. It doesn't hit. It goes all the way up. In fact, the bracket hits the engine before the alternator hits the exhaust here. So really, I'm done with the alternator part, and I can just proceed with the install in order.
Okay, so that's it for this video. I apologize for all the time I spent on the ear thing. The problem is when you're shooting the video and you're deep into it, you don't necessarily realize how long you're taking to explain something, and then later when you go to edit it, it's difficult to know how to cut it. You find out that you stated things in such a way that you can't cut it down. It's kind of weird. I really should plan it out better, but it's a lot of work actually to do these YouTube videos, and I don't really make anything out of it, and I don't need a job. So I just figured, hey, I'm doing all this work anyway, I might as well film it. But even that actually takes a lot of time. So also I was dreading putting it out because I noticed as I went through some of the video that takes place on the next couple of videos that my camera broke, and it was giving me these lines in it, and so now I don't even know if I'm going to be able to easily piece together anything that's going to show the rest of the process. I can't explain it, and so there may be a lot of voiceovers or something like that, and we'll see how it goes. But in the next video, hopefully I'll just start kind of pretty much right in the process of the install, step 1, and move through. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this helps somebody. I hope this helps you determine if this is something you want to do. What I can say is, in the end, I'm pretty pleased with the power of the car. It feels correct. It feels more like how quick the car should be, especially in today where there's so many fast cars out there. All right, anyway, thanks a lot. See you next time.